I keep seeing myself on the opposite train platform, by Muzz. I was someone who was pretty much anonymous in life. It was a vicious cycle of monotony. I had very few people in my life. I didn't want to see my family due to a variety of reasons that I won't get into. At work, I just kept my head down and tried to interact with my colleagues as little as possible. But they didn't always make it easy. My friends were few and far between. To be honest, most of them I had never met. I had social media, but rarely used it. And even when I did, it was disheartening due to the lack of followers and likes I got. My appearance was very average. I looked like your stereotypical white male. Brown hair, green eyes, and a decent enough beard. Not the worst looking, but not the best looking either. I think my biggest problem is that I had never been the most confident person, often failing to act upon my impulses because I was too scared of the consequences. As a result, I felt like I had been missing out on a lot of what life had to offer. Now that I was 29 and approaching 30, it was really starting to dawn on me how much of my life I had wasted. Every time I thought I had a great idea to revitalise my life, reality would bring those thoughts crashing down. I got a job straight out of school, and that is the only job I've ever had. I had lost the ambition to try and get promoted, so I just accepted my position in the company. My job was tough and took a lot out of me. It was long hours and mind-numbing, but it paid the bills. I would often go back to my flat exhausted after a day's work and just want to curl up on the couch and put on a show that I had watched for the 20th time all the way through. Not exaggerating. Like my job, my flat was the only one I ever had. When I first bought it, I had so many ideas for it, like making a games room or having a cool feature wall, but I had pretty much given up on most things in life and just truly tried to get through life with as little trouble as possible. Little did I know, life was going to give me trouble, and a lot of it. It all started on a random Tuesday night. It was the end of my shift at work and I was getting the train at the same time I always did, 5:17 p.m. from platform 8. I always aimed to get this one as it was just before rush hour and the platform and train were much quieter. I was wearing my work overalls, the bottom half of which was orange and the top half was light blue. It was safe to say I stood out, which is why I at least tried to hide the top half of me with a black jacket. I always zipped all the way up so I could hide at least one of the garish colours. I ensured no one could see the blue before I left the building at work. I didn't want anyone to know where I worked. I had my earphones in and was listening to my favourite podcast, which was all about horror stories. I always wanted to write a horror story, but that was another one of those grand ideas I had that never came to fruition. I would always arrive early for my train, usually around 5:05 p.m, so I could get a seat on the platform after a long day of work and unwind. My favourite thing to do while waiting for the train was to watch the different people on the platform, and for the regulars that I would see, I would give them a backstory. My favourite backstory was a couple who I named Jan and Jim, who were secretly in love but were trying to pretend to everyone else that they were just friends. I would see them every Tuesday, Thursday and Friday at the same time. I was coming up with another story in my head about them and what they had done when they were out of everyone's sight when I noticed someone new on the platform opposite me, which was platform 9. Platform 9 was essentially a mirror image of platform 8. Both had two sets of stairs at either end of the platform, which led to walkways to access the rest of the train station. The platform were split into two, 7 and 8 for my side and 9 and 10 for the other side. There were two pillars in the middle of the platform and 3 sets of double back seats. The only difference on the platform was that the seats across from me weren't there due to someone damaging them with a sledgehammer or something. The person who caught my eye was sitting exactly where I would sit if I were on platform 9, the closest seat to the front of the train. The reason the person caught my eye was that they were wearing orange trousers and a black jacket, just like me. It wasn't quite the exact orange trousers, as theirs were clearly well worn and faded. The black jacket had a few visibly large stains on it and a rip or two. In my head, I joked to myself that this is what I could look like if I didn't look after myself. Another thing I noticed was how the man was sitting. He was very upright, like a stiff board. He was gripping the arms of the seat tightly and looked uncomfortable. Poor guy is probably going through something, I thought to myself. My train arrived in time and I got on and made my way to the window where I could still see the guy. He was still sat there looking as stiff as before. I watched him all the way out of the station until I couldn't see him anymore. I thought about the man for a few more minutes before going back to thinking about my evening. A week had gone past without much to write home about. I had a quiet weekend due to being short on money. I'd forgotten all about the man in the similar clothing. My day had been pretty stressful due to my work colleagues and I just wanted to get home. I was later than I liked when I got to the platform. I chose to stand as I only had a minute or two before the train was due to arrive. I was fumbling with my bag to get my earphones out. I really had to dig around as my earphones had fallen right to the bottom. I'd managed to grab them and was about to put them on when I saw him again. Sitting in the same spot as last time, wearing the same ragged clothes, but he was sitting differently. He looked a lot more relaxed this time. He wasn't as rigid and wasn't gripping on to the seat for dear life. He still didn't look completely natural. It made me feel a bit better that he seemed to be doing better, and I hoped he was doing better. My train arrived and I got on. Unable to get a seat to see the man, I couldn't take the one final look to see if he was okay. The train departed and I had good thoughts in my head regarding the man. I hoped he would be okay. It was the following Tuesday and I had arrived at my usual time. The man was sitting there again. He must be someone I work with because he was now wearing exactly what I was wearing. Everything looked identical. I thought to myself in that moment that I must try and catch him when I was walking to the train station. Maybe he leaves even earlier than me, which is saying something. I'm going to make a conscious effort next week to try and look out for him before I leave from work. We could walk to the train station together and chat about all sorts and maybe become buddies. There goes my overactive imagination again. I haven't even met the guy and I'm already assuming we'll be friends. I will try and catch him next week and speak to him, but he probably won't even like me. Over the next couple of days, I looked around for people heading my way to the train station, but there was nobody heading in that direction. Then I remembered it had only been Tuesdays when I had seen him, so he must only work that day. The next week, I remembered to look out for the guy this time. As I turned the corner and headed down the stairs to the platform, my eyes shot straight to the area where the man had been. He wasn't there. I felt a little bit of sadness come over me as I was looking forward to seeing if I could try and make eye contact with him and maybe even give him a little wave. I thought about it all week and I had hoped that it could be the start of our friendship. But now I was feeling very much alone and decided to focus on my horror podcast for the next 10 minutes to take my mind off the disappointment. The hosts were discussing a new story called Flat 333, which was a little bit all over the place as a story, but had some good elements. Within a few minutes before my train was due to arrive, I stood up and went to the edge of the platform to ensure I was closest to the door when it opened. I looked where the train was coming from, but my gaze was caught by the man standing up in his bright orange trousers and black jacket at the edge of platform 9, an exact mirror image to me. He was standing there very upright, as if an invisible force was trying to lift him off the ground. His body parts looked like they were tensing with all their might, as if he was being shot by a taser. Just as I saw my train pulling into the station, the man relaxed for just a second, before one arm locked in place as if he was holding something and the other arm was going wild, its fingers and hand convulsing in every direction, with his arm jerking and lunging from side to side, up and down. All the while his gaze were locked onto his hands. The train came through fast and obscured my view. I ran onto the train and bumped a few people who were getting off, but I had to see this man and what he was doing. From the window I could see him, and he was still agitated, and it honestly looked as if he was having a fit. As the train pulled away and the man was out of sight, all the feelings I had of wanting to meet this man and a conversation with him disappeared. All that was left was a feeling of unease and a little bit of fear. After last week's unsettling display, I was dreading Tuesday. I thought I would try not to get my usual train, but life wasn't playing fair. I couldn't get off early due to my boss simply not allowing it, and I had to get the train so I could be home to let the plumber in to fix my sink in the kitchen. I had the idea of pretending to be off work, sick. However, I was too scared of the consequences if I was caught. I would have to try to time it so I got there just in time for my train to arrive. I left slightly later than usual and made my way down to the station, but I didn't go down to the platform yet. I watched my watch and waited for 15:16 p.m, and as soon as I hit that, I started running down the stairs, looking at the ground. "Don't look up," I kept repeating to myself. I made it all the way to my spot and waited for the train. I waited with bated breath for the sound of the train. The seconds ticked by and there was still no sound. I turned my gaze to the platform board and saw that my train was delayed by 2 minutes. "God damn it," I said, hushed under my breath to ensure no one heard it. I felt like life really was out to get me. But then I heard the train. However, out of the corner of my eye, there was movement. The man had started to stand up. I looked as he almost struggled to get up from his chair and took a few unsteady steps towards the edge of the platform. He didn't look comfortable at all with his movements. They were laboured, and it didn't look like he knew how to move his body. I felt a wave of apprehension come over me. His unnatural steps took him closer to the edge. I genuinely thought in that moment he was going to fall onto the platform 9 tracks. I was just falling all over the place. I wanted to look away and focus on something else, but I was mesmerised by the horrible jolting movements. Suddenly he snapped up into place and stood just like he had the other week. I was shocked at what I just saw. I didn't have any time to process it as the train pulled out at the station, obscuring my view. I got on the train and never looked for the window seat. I didn't want to look at the man. I was starting to worry about the man, but also I was starting to worry if I should be worrying about myself. I had done a lot of thinking since last Tuesday and realised something. The person was mimicking the movements and actions week by week. Everything I did was repeated the following week. For what reason? I don't know. Maybe it was a prank and this sad individual had nothing better to do. I wanted to test my theory. Last week I waited until 5:16 to run down the stairs, so I expected to see the same from the individual this week. I would sit at the opposite side of platform 8 from where I sat. This would give me a better view of the person, or at least that's what I hoped to do. The very idea of moving closer to this individual was making my anxiety spike. In my head, I was playing all the terrible and worst scenarios over and over in my head, and it only caused me to fear my plan even more. It was 5:14 p.m. and I had 2 minutes to walk up the platform and sit down on the opposite end from me. My second-hand watch was already at 6, so I had little time to waste. I sprang up with all my might and took my first step towards my goal. My breathing was heavy and I could feel the palms start to sweat. My heart was starting to beat so loud and so hard it felt as if someone was playing a bass drum in my chest. Inching my way closer, I could see the seat that would give me the view I needed of the individual. 1 minute to go. I started to quicken my pace, feeling anxiety and fear grow, but I didn't stop until I looked up the stairs of platform 9. I stopped dead in my tracks. What am I doing? I thought to myself as a wave of horror came over me and I started to panic. I can't do this. I turned and half ran back to my seat with just enough time to turn and face. 20 seconds to go until I would see if my hypothesis was correct. But I was still overcome with my emotions and I started to feel nauseous. 10 seconds. I almost didn't look, but I knew I had to in order to see at least some of my plan through. Just as my watch struck 5:16, there he was. He came barreling down the stairs, limbs flying everywhere. It was an amalgamation of thrashing movements combined with the velocity of moving down the stairs. It was like a runaway puppet, and just as quick as it started, it was over. He stood where I would stand. waiting for the train if I were on platform 9. My train had just pulled into platform 8 and blocked my view of him. I felt like such a letdown. I felt so weak, but I suppose at least I knew the person was attempting to mimic my movements, so I could use that to my advantage, somehow. But I was in too bad of a place to come up with anything as the train pulled away. I felt ashamed of how I had let my fear overcome me, and I couldn't even get closer to the person. Last week's disaster of a plan had left me shaken, more shaken than usual. I thought it was just all a coincidence, the clothes, things he was doing, but now I knew he was copying me, and that made it seem terrifying. Why me? I thought. What have I done to deserve this? I thought about going to the police, but they would surely turn me away. So all he's doing is copying you? Then, as soon as I left, they would laugh about the poor loser who was worried about someone copying him every Tuesday. I needed to get a grip. He wasn't harming me, and if I gave him a reaction, that is probably what he would want. I would do what I'd always done. Keep my head down and keep myself to myself. For the next few weeks, that's what I did. I kept myself to myself and followed my regular routine. Sit on the chair at the station and then stand up. He was there and he was copying me one for one now. I never looked directly at him. I kept him always in the periphery of my vision. I noticed his movements were a lot smoother. He looked like he was comfortable standing and walking. When I got on the train and sat at the other side, I looked out the window. I didn't want to give him the time of day, and for a few weeks that's how it went. I learned to live with it, and if it continued that way, even though I wasn't the biggest fan of it, it did bring some excitement to my boring life, and I'm sure I could have lived with it like that. But life can be cruel, very cruel. After a few weeks, I got curious again. The man was now so in sync with me that it was like a mirror image. He stood up when I stood up, walked forward to the edge of the platform when I did. He had even started coming down the stairs when I went down to the platform. It was starting to annoy me how good he was getting at it. No matter how much I tried to not notice him, he kept catching my eye or into my thoughts. I was starting to get annoyed by him. So I thought of a plan to catch him out. Throughout the entire time, I'd always kept my jacket on, and therefore my bright light blue top had never been seen. My jacket had always been zipped up, and the jacket was longer than the top by a distance. I was excited to try it out and pull a fast one on this person who'd been copying me. When I turned the stairs to platform 8, I saw him walk down the stairs at the other side in the platform 9. I got to the bottom and unzipped my jacket to reveal the very loud colour. The man froze mid-stride. Got you, I thought proudly to myself. I took my usual seat and watched the man stand there still as a statue. I felt so accomplished. I'd actually forgotten what it felt like to feel this way. And to be frank, it felt great. The man finally moved again and sat down in his usual seat. I couldn't take my eyes off him. I had found a chink in his armour, and I was feeling bold enough to go up and try and get his attention. But I thought better of it and didn't want to get ahead of myself. I stood up earlier than normal to see if the man would follow my lead. I felt so confident, I could take on anything. The man approached the platform and stood. Yeah, I got you, I mouthed in his direction. I hope what he was feeling was embarrassment at how I had outsmarted him. Next time I'll try something different. Maybe I'll wear different coloured socks. Maybe I'll wear a funny hat. As this thought raced through my head, I didn't notice the man start to unzip his jacket. He pulled it down very slowly. It got away halfway down before I took notice. He was a bit late in copying me, but it didn't really affect me, as I was in such a high. But what did affect me was the flash of blue from underneath his jacket. It stopped me dead in my tracks. He had fully unzipped it and slid one arm out and let the jacket slide down off the other arm onto the floor to reveal exactly the same top as I had on. I didn't notice the train was coming, but I only got a glimpse of the man in the same outfit as me. His mouth started to move before the train came, but I couldn't see him. He had outsmarted me. He was playing with me. A few weeks after the jacket removal, I just went about my week, and when I got to Tuesday, I just ensured I was playing along. I made sure not to try any more tricks after the last plan had been such a failure. The Tuesdays came and went, and I got back to living my life without any worries. But that all changed at the start of the 7th week. I was sitting alone the Wednesday, and all that was in my mind was getting home to my computer to play some games. The mind was very much at peace. I'd survived Tuesday without much of an issue, and the mind was just copying my moves. So if I stayed still, so did he. It still brought a little bit of excitement into my life, even though it scared me at first. I was kind of enjoying it a little bit. It was something different from the dullness of life. I wish I had never felt this way, as it started to escalate very quickly from here. As on that Wednesday night, I saw him again, and my heart sank into me like a lead balloon. No, it can't be, I muttered to myself. But he wasn't exactly what I was wearing, doing exactly what I was doing. My train arrived, and I stood up, and so did he. Fuck! I thought to myself. The uneasy truce I had formed in my head with this individual was now broken, and I was unsure of how to proceed next. Thursday came, and I was still rattled from the day before. I was on edge the whole day, and my boss even had a word with me to get my shit together. Even though I would still be more productive than everyone else, I was dreading getting the train home now, as he could be there again. And if he was, I would really start to panic. I could get another train, another mode of transport. However, I feared he would still turn up, and if I didn't get the train, he would start looking for me elsewhere, maybe even come to my house. At least at the train station, it was public, and I knew he would be there, and I knew he wouldn't get on the train, so I decided to go for it and see if he was there. This is getting outrageous, I thought. The fear was now the most it had ever been. I was petrified and couldn't move from the top of the stairs. I stood there for minutes, but a sound broke me from my frightened state. Nah. It was loud and it was echoing around the platform. I could see people looking around trying to figure out what it was. Nah. I was confused as to what the noise was. It started to sound louder and grew longer. My eyes were darting about as the sound rebounded around the platforms. It was difficult to know where it was coming from. But then it changed and became the word no. As soon as it was said, my eyes knew exactly where to go and looked at my mimic. His lips were moving, and out of them came a gravelly, deep, booming voice that was so unnerving to listen to. It didn't sound like a human voice was capable of having. No. The shouting grew more frantic and angrier. No, it can't be. 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 And just like that, it was quiet, and you could hear a pin drop. I could not take my eyes off him as he just stopped and stood back in his still upright stance as if nothing had happened. The train came, and I was in such fear that I almost missed it. But I did not want to spend any more time looking at this thing or now hearing it, so I ran and just made it onto the platform. As soon as I get in, I contact my boss to tell him I wasn't coming in tomorrow. "What's the matter with you?" he asked dismissively. I had to think of something quickly. I felt ill on the train home, was the best I could come up with. He sighed and stated firmly that it had only been an hour since he last saw me, and I seemed fine. He made it clear that if I wasn't in tomorrow, then this would be a disciplinary matter. My alarm went off at 6:14 a.m, as it usually did, and immediately I felt an impending sense of doom. Every inch of me was telling me to stay in bed, to stay there and not to face the day. I felt as though I couldn't face the other me again. It was beyond a joke now, and I was feeling that if I didn't do something soon, something bad might happen to me. Maybe I should have listened to myself and my body, but I started to get ready for work, and I made it in early for my shift. "Stephen, you seem to have made such a miraculous recovery," my boss sneered as I walked through the door. This made me angry. I had never once stepped out of line or done anything to make him dislike me. The anger stuck with me throughout the day. Everything at work was getting to me. I was realising just how much I was being taken for granted here. People making fun of me, asking me to do work that was theirs, and just all around being unkind and mean to me. In work and out of work, I was being made a mockery. My anger was building to a fever pitch. My boss came over to me with an hour to go of my shift and asked if I would help one of the guys with his work. "I've got my own work I need to finish," I said. My boss just looked at me perplexed, as I had never said anything like that back. He replied, "Well, you can just go back to it after you help Terry with his." Terry was one of the boss's favourites, and he got away with murder. I stared up at him and was about to say yes, but the anger came out of me and materialised in the form of saying a strong no. My boss stared at me blankly and seemed to be taken aback. "Now, Steve, I've given you a direct order, so I think it would be wise to take it on board with what I'm saying and help Terry," my boss said with condescension in his voice. Again, my first instinct was to say yes, but the anger had overcome me. "I will not help Terry, as Terry is more than capable of doing his job. I have stuff to do which you are now causing me to be behind with," I growled. My boss went to open his mouth, but I cut him off. "You asked, no, you forced me to come in when I wasn't feeling well, and if you continue to push this, I will go to HR and report you and Terry for workplace negligence." My boss didn't say a word and just nodded and walked away. The anger in my body had subsided and was replaced with a feeling of assurance I had not felt in years. For the first time in years, I had stood up to someone and not let them walk all over me. I felt amazing. I felt alive. I felt as though it was time to confront that son of the bitch who was copying me. The drive and motivation stuck with me all the way to the train station, and then the fear hit me. I was so caught up with my feelings of standing up for myself that I didn't think about how I was going to confront the wannabe me. I decided that it was best not to go to platform 9 to scope him out like I'd done before. I needed to walk right down the stairs of platform 9 and go right up to him and give him a piece of my mind and ensure that he knew I wasn't going to let this go on any further. But the dread and terror really started to kick in, and I was slowly. The drive and motivation stuck with me all the way to the train station, and then the fear hit me. I was so caught up in my feelings of standing up for myself that I didn't think about how I was going to confront the wannabe me. I decided that it was best not to go to platform 8 to scope him out like I had done before. I needed to walk down the stairs at platform 9 and go right up to him and give him a piece of my mind and ensure that he knew I wasn't going to let this go on any further. but the terror and dread had really started to kick in. I was getting slower and slower to reach my target. I was on the verge of giving up when I thought of just how angry the whole situation made me. I was being used and humiliated just like at work. I sped up, approaching the stairs at pace. My teeth were clenched and I was tightly squeezing my fist. My body was tense but ready for what was about to come. I rounded the corner and fixed my eyes on the seat, and all the angry energy was sapped from me as there was no one sitting in the seat. I was so disappointed. I had psyched myself up so much to confront the wannabe me, and for him to not show up was so typical of my life. However, I knew exactly where to look next, and sure enough, he was standing on the platform 8 set of stairs that I walked down every time. Exactly how I was standing, but how did he know I was going to confront him today? How did he know I was going to be at his platform? I moved my hand up, and he copied. I quickly ran back along the walkway to my platform and poked my head out from behind the wall and looked at platform 9 stairs. He wasn't there. I waited a few more seconds for the inevitable head to come around the wall, but it never came. I was confused. He had done so well at copying me. Why stop now? Maybe he knew I wanted to confront him and ran. I checked all the way down platform 9, but there was no sign of him. I didn't drop my guard until I was sure I was safe, and just as well I didn't. I scanned from the bottom of my stairs, moving slowly up platform 8, checking every person and tried to see if he was hiding behind any of the pillars. I got to the bottom of the stairs and still nothing. I moved swiftly up the stairs and got to the top to be met with a sick grin. He was still on my platform stairs, and we were looking directly at each other for the first time. His smile was haunting. It was wide and uncanny. It was the first time I had managed to get a good, straightforward look at him, and he was me. But the smile wasn't my smile. It was a monstrous smile. I did not feel fear engulfed me like all the other times. It was anger. That was my face, and whatever this or whoever this was had stolen it. I stood up at the top of the stairs to platform 8. He followed my lead. I stepped down onto the first step, and he followed. We were walking towards each other for the first time. I kept taking one step at a time, pausing to see if he followed, and he did. We were halfway down the steps and as close as we had ever been. He stood like me. He had the same build. Everything was the same except for that horrible smile on his face. Anger was still there, but the fear was starting to rear its ugly head. I could feel my body wanting to stop moving, but I forced myself to run down the stairs to the bottom. I looked up and waited for him to run down. As I waited, I could hear the train approaching. I wonder if he would follow me on, I thought to myself as I waited for him to move. He never did. He just looked down at me. The train blew past me and I took my eyes off him to look at the train. When I turned back, he had stepped back up one step. He acted the opposite of what I had done. He then raised his left arm and gave me a slow wave. Fear had now overtaken me. Was he acting on his own? Had he learned all he could from me? And if he had, what did it mean for me? Just as those thoughts entered my head, he started marching down the stairs at a quick pace. The train had almost stopped. He seemed to enjoy each step, as he knew that with each step the fear in me grew. He then pointed at me, as if he'd selected his target. The train had stopped, but the driver wasn't opening the doors yet. I banged on them in a pitiful attempt to get them open quicker. He had gotten to the bottom of the stairs and was now in a full sprint heading straight for me. His body mangled its way quickly towards me. He still didn't seem to be in complete control. The doors were still not open, and he was only 4 carriages away. The doors finally open, and I leapt on, pushing several people out of my way. My breathing was rapid, and my heart was bursting out of my chest. I lay there for a few moments on the floor. Everything was numb. I had never felt fear like this before. It wasn't until I saw the foot of the doppelganger enter my field of view. He stood there, taking heavy breaths. I slowly stood up, and he turned to face me. We were now facing each other, and it was like looking into a mirror. Although some imperfections on his face weren't on mine, but it was as close as you could get. Our eyes were locked as the door shut, and as the train moved off, his eyes started to bulge and his smile somehow got wider and more hideous to look at. He gave me another slow wave and I collapsed on a seat. I arrived at my stop and the anger came back to me. Enough is enough. This stalking and harassment has gone on for too long and I needed to put a stop to it and get the relevant authorities involved. I didn't waste any time. I went straight to the police station. I marched up to the reception with fear and anger as my motivation. I need to see a detective. The words shot out of my mouth. The person behind the reception took a moment, clearly trying to choose their words carefully, as they could probably tell I wasn't in the best mood. "What seems to be the problem, sir?" she said. I gripped the edge of the wood and said, "I am being stalked and harassed. It's been going on for weeks, no, months. I must have come across more manic this time." And she sat up straight and communicated, "Sir, I need you to take a breath and calm down." I did, and started to feel better. I didn't realise how badly this had been affecting me until this moment. "What's your name?" she asked. "Stephen Murray," I responded in a much calmer tone. She typed something onto the computer. "Detective Hancock is in?" She looked up at me as if she was looking for a response. When I gave her a blank look for a few seconds, she bluntly asked, "Do you want to speak to him?" Yes, I stammered. She started putting numbers into her phone. I thought the whole interaction was strange. I was more than prepared to kick up a fuss to see someone, even if it meant getting arrested, but this felt too easy. I followed her through a door deeper into the police station. I felt a sense of relief that I would get help with this awful situation. When I entered, I could see a few people sitting at desks and a group of officers in the back, all grouped together. The woman I was following motioned to someone who I assumed was Detective Hancock. He looked like someone who had seen some shit. He was slightly overweight, who had a suit on that looked like it had been washed one too many times. The first thing I noticed about his head was how many frown lines, which were deep and made it look like his head had been squashed. He had a thick beard that was wild and needed to be tamed. His hair was long, but looked to be hanging on his scalp by a thread. He looked up and caught my eye. He gave me friendly acknowledgement. Then he looked at the woman and motioned to the room on our right. "In here." She motioned me into the room. I sat, and the seconds felt like minutes, and the minutes felt like hours. My anxiety was growing. Would they ever believe me? I mean, technically he hadn't hurt me. No, but he was close to. Today felt like a threat, and he is affecting my life, ruining it. He has filled my thoughts, keeps me up at night, and is the first thing I think about when I wake up. I need them to believe me. I need to make them believe me. Just then the woman walked in and startled me. "Detective Hancock wants you to review this," she said. I looked at her confused and asked, "What am I reviewing?" She gave me another stare, and I could tell she was starting to lose her patience with me. "He needs you to review your statement." I looked at her blankly again for a few seconds. She just looked back and then started to walk out. "Did you say review my statement?" Nah, she must have misspoke, I thought. I slowly turned to the document that she put in front of me. A massive pit formed in my stomach as I looked at the name and read Stephen Murray. I felt numb as I continued to look at the document. Everything was correct. My name, date of birth, my address, my phone number were all correct. I started to read the statement. I first noted this individual on a random Tuesday. He was wearing similar clothes to me, but I didn't think much of it. I was sitting on platform 8. "No, you weren't," I shouted at the piece of paper. I started shaking as I continued to read. I started noticing that the clothes were becoming more and more like my work uniform until it was my work uniform. It was just Tuesday until this week when it was every day, and it was escalating quickly. Tears started to land on the paper. I felt lost. I felt defeated. I felt like an idiot. I thought he had just been mimicking me this whole time, but he had been one step ahead of me, and I was just playing into his hands. Just then, the door burst open, and in walked the man I assumed was Detective Hancock. "Steve, my boy, how have you been?" I turned around and he saw my face and stopped in his tracks. "No, Stephen." He quickly hurried to his chair and sat down across from me. "Has it gotten worse? Has he tried to confront you?" I just stared at him and tried to control myself, but my emotions were all over the place. I couldn't focus. I couldn't find the words to express the shock and horror of reading what was happening to me, but in his words. "Stephen, I need you to just take a breath and tell me what's going on," Detective Hancock said softly. I took a deep breath. "When was this written?" I asked Detective Hancock. He had a bewildered look on his face when I asked this. "I'm not sure I follow," he asked. I grew angry and raised my voice. "When was this written?" I screamed. Detective Hancock's face now changed to a more serious one. He replied, "Stephen, you came in yesterday and sat down with me. Look at the bottom of the statement. You signed it." My eyes fell to the bottom of the document. Stephen Murray had signed and put the date. It was indeed yesterday. "I didn't write this," I muttered under my breath. "What was that?" asked Detective Hancock. I slammed my hand on the desk and shouted at the top of my voice, "I did not write this!" Detective Hancock sprang up from his seat. "Calm down, Stephen," he bellowed with a real sense of authority. I put my head in my hands and started to sob. I could hear the creaking of the chair as Hancock slowly sat back down. "Now, can you tell me what is going on?" he asked. I looked up at him pathetically and whimpered, The statement isn't mine." "Then whose is it, Stephen?" "It's the other me, the one who's been following me." Hancock sat back in his chair and seemed to be trying to comprehend my words. "So you're saying yesterday you didn't come in and give this statement?" "Yes, that is what I'm saying." Hancock's eyes pierced me, and for the first time I felt like I was being studied. He was looking at everything, trying to work out if I was telling the truth. "Here's my problem, Stephen. I know I'm old, but I'm not that old to misremember something that happened yesterday. But, I'm speaking. Don't interrupt." He paused and looked at me intently, waiting for an acknowledgement, and I gave him one. "Yesterday, you walked in here, much calmer than you are now, and we talked through your situation. You were wearing the same outfit. Your hair was very similar to what you have now. The only difference is your voice, which was a lot scratchier and deeper yesterday. But you said you had been recovering from bad chest infection, and you were saying that wasn't you." I didn't know how to answer. I felt like the moment I said it wasn't me, he would jump down my throat and show me some CCTV of the imposter pretending to me sitting across from him yesterday. I was helpless. I had to try something, so I gave him a nod to indicate that's exactly what happened. "Do you have a twin?" No, I don't. I'm an only child." Hancock arose sharply and took a deep breath. "I need to go talk to a few people. I need you to stay here. You got that? Oh, I need you to put your phone on the table." Again, I gave him a nod and did as he asked, and put my phone on the table. He marched out of the room. I did not slam the door, but shut it in a way that indicated he was not happy. I was alone, more alone than at any point in my life. I was shaking and my mind was going 100 miles per hour. I had to do something. My impulses was going to get out of here. I'm sure Hancock was on his way back in here, with clear evidence that the lookalike was here. He was going to jump to conclusions about me and accuse me of wasting police time. I sat waiting. I looked out the office and could see Hancock looking at me. At that moment I acted on my impulses. I ran for the door, out through reception, and ran as quickly as I had ever run away from the police. In that moment I forgot all about the doppelganger. I was scared, but it was an exciting kind of scared, running away from the police. It was the first time in a long time I had felt this kind of rush and excitement The feeling quickly disappeared when I realised how poor my cardio was. My lungs felt like they were on fire. It was as if someone had poured lava into my lungs. I started to wheeze. I tried to keep moving, but the lack of effort and get up and go in my life was now catching up with me. The physical pain was intense, and then the mental pain came back. I was fucked. For all the time I thought this thing was learning from me, when in fact I had been one step ahead of me the whole time. I had lured me into a trap, and I'd fell right into it. My thoughts were plagued with the other me all the way home. I got to the door, unlocked it, and took my final steps inside the place I called home for many years. As I opened the door, two of my senses were hit with two unfamiliar things. A flickering light which moved as the air from the hallway rushed in, and a pine fresh smell. I slowly opened the door to see a line of candles going up my hall. I edged in. I was too exhausted and defeated at this point to be scared. I crept my way through my flat. I got to the corner and slowly moved my head around the corner, and the line of candles continued to my room. Moving a bit faster now, I just wanted whatever this was to be over. I didn't creak the door open, but rather stumble through it. There was one singular candle lit in my couch in the front window. The candle was next to something, but I couldn't make out what it was until I got closer. It was a walkie-talkie. I approached it cautiously and picked it up. Hello? I said down it. Just as I spoke into the device, a light from the flat across from me lit up, and he was standing there. He was me and I was him. There was no mistake about it. He raised his hand and gave me the same slow wave, and I gave him a slow, lethargic one back. He then raised his other hand, and there was something in it. Just then static came on through the walkie, and I could hear the deep breathing coming from the other side. It was like for a few moments each breath, making me more and more unsettled. Then a phone started to ring through the walkie-talkie. Hello, this is Detective Hancock.
Hello, Detective. It is Stephen here. Sorry I couldn't call earlier. What seems to be the problem? The voice was very similar to mine now. It was still raspy, but it was undoubtedly close to my voice. Well, Stephen, we had an interesting meeting with someone this evening. It was you. The detective paused, waiting for a response, but all there was the heavy breathing. Well, it's your little stalker friend. Wanted to make a complaint about you. I called you to confirm it was you or not, and there was no activity from the individual's phone in the interview room. Before I was able to confirm him, he made a run for it. Where are you? There was a pause, and he spoke. Interesting. I had an encounter with this person myself today, my mimic said. Hancock was interrupted before he could go any further. What? You were supposed to inform me of any other encounters you had. The breathing was loud, as if he didn't like being interrupted. I was hiding. I was scared to go home. The doppelganger said it in the most monotone voice. Okay, I will come over right now and ensure the place is safe for you. I can be there in 5 minutes. No! He shouted down the phone, and then silence. Give me time to get home. I will be 20 minutes. Detective Hancock seemed to be taken aback by the outburst. Okay, but I'll be there 5 minutes early to look around the place before you arrive. Fine. Goodbye, Detective. Before Hancock could respond, the phone was hung up. I was standing watching him through the window. The breathing was still present and loud. Leave now, he said to me. I picked up the walkie and shouted down the phone. What do you want from me? He brought the walkie right up to his mouth and whispered into it. I want your life. Out of everything that happened to me at this point, this moment sucked the soul out of me. He was trying to steal my life from me. You have time to leave, he whispered down the phone. Why are you doing this to me? Because I was once like you, and I'm giving you a chance at life again. So go now, otherwise you will die tonight. I was standing ready to accept my fate and take on what was to come. If I died, so what?
Nobody knew me, nobody would miss me, nobody would mourn the person I'd become. Stephen Murray was a loser and was forgotten very quickly by the people who knew him. My gut was telling me to run, but I was still wallowing in self-pity and put my head in my hands. I had almost made up my mind to completely give up on life, and then I remembered some of the feelings I had felt during this whole situation. Mostly fear, yes, but fleeting moments of excitement and euphoria. When I thought of these moments and these emotions and how good they had made me feel, I wanted to feel more of them. So I knew I had to follow my gut this time and not worry about the consequences. I gathered up a few of my things and ran for the door and into the night and said goodbye to my life as Stephen Murray. It's been 2 months since this all happened, and I'm doing well now. A lot better than I thought I would, being on the run. I don't have a name now, but I go by Terry to all the people I've met. I've managed to keep up with Stephen through social media, and he seems to be doing very well. He has taken over my social and is posting about his life. He looks to have made some new friends and is looking healthier than I ever did. He seems to have reconnected with the family I left behind and even got a promotion at work. Terry looks pissed in the picture that was posted, which made me smile. I was smiling a lot more now. Stephen even had time to do up my flat and made it look very nice, although I would have went with a different style. He seems to have even gotten himself a girlfriend, which I could never have done. I'm happy for him. He has done more with Stephen Murray than I ever could. I was stuck in a rut, and I did not believe I would have ever lived the life that he was leading now. People say I gave up and was a coward for not standing up to the person who stole my life, and to be honest, that's how I felt for a time after I left. But now that I had had some time to think and mull it over, and I realised that I had done something brave, I seen Stephen as the person who had given me a second chance at life. He had taken what was a monotonous, empty, lacklustre life and turned it around into something that had potential to become much more than what that life was. He made me think about how I was before and forced me to change for the better. I have taken those moments from our meetings and learned to apply them to life situations. I have been reborn as a new person, someone who's confident, more spontaneous and more prepared. I have a long-term plan, and I know what I need to do. For the past few months, I've been merely surviving and building myself back up from the hollow shell that was left. I am at a point now where I'm ready to start my plan and step out into the world again. I need to start living a life again, and I need to go to a train station. The end.